with Beijing, they were warning the U.S., saying that if the U.S. were to impose tariffs, then China just wouldn't buy as much American stuff. Secretary Ross was here over the weekend, following up on the recent trade talks in Washington. And the conversations here were centered largely on technical issues involving Chinese purchases of agriculture as well as energy products. The other issues that the business community has wanted to see on the table, such as China's industrial policies or that the Chinese had wanted to discuss, ZTE, those issues did come up. However, they were not a priority. The U.S. Also didn't issue a statement. That was largely because Secretary Ross is going to be meeting with President Trump on Monday. The Chinese, though, did, saying that there was plenty of concrete progress made on the areas of agriculture and energy. However, they also did add this. If the U.S. introduces trade sanctions, including tariffs, the economic and trade achievements negotiated by the two sides will not go into effect. Now, the Trump administration has said that it would impose a 25% tariff on $50 billion worth of Chinese-made goods by mid-June. When that announcement came out, it was largely seen as a negotiating tactic here of the United States. However, just based on the statement out of Beijing, it appears that China does want to do a little bit of leverage negotiating of its own because they believe that they have an advantage because they can address an issue which is important to President Trump, and that is the trade deficit.
Let's get back to Josh Lipton at the Apple Developers Conference in San Jose for the very latest. Josh.
Well, Sarah, Apple's Craig Federighi on stage here, trying to get these 6,000 people behind me here excited about iOS 12, Apple's new mobile operating system. There was a big focus right up front on augmented reality. He talked about ARKit 2.0, really. That's that set of tools that Apple gives developers to allow them to create AR apps. One big change that's coming here, AR apps that look like they're going to allow multiple users. So two people could play the same AR game, see the same virtual objects. That would be a big deal to gamers. We also talked about photos. You know, there's 1 trillion of photos, Federighi pointed out, that are captured on these iOS devices every year. So Apple did add this new feature, Sarah, where you take a photo with some friends, Apple will recommend the people you would want to share those photos with. So really kind of adding some more AI chops here.
We are live in Seattle with the interview of the day, of the morning. Howard Schultz is here, announcing yesterday that he's going to step down from the company as executive chair after nearly 40 years. Of course, growing this company from just 11 stores here in Seattle to now 28,000 in over 77 different countries. Talked about the future, potentially some philanthropy, and of course, a lot of speculation about a comment you made about public service, which we're going to talk about as well. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Thank you, Andrew.
The last time we were together here, Kevin Johnson was sitting next to you.
Yes.
You were handing over the reins of the company as the CEO, but you said, I'm all in. I'm all in for Starbucks. So here we are a year later. Why now?
Well, whether I leave Starbucks or not, I will always be all in at Starbucks. But this has been planned for over a year, and my confidence and faith in Kevin and the leadership team, the long-term opportunity for Starbucks, the company's in a great position. And it's always been a team sport. It's the right time for me to leave, and I have other opportunities and other things that I want to do.
There's going to be a celebration here at the White House this afternoon. It's just not going to be a celebration of the Philadelphia Eagles. The president saying that there's going to be a celebration of America in place of that Super Bowl victory lap that often happens between presidents and Super Bowl champions. This year, not going to happen. Here's what the president tweeted about this morning, saying, "We will proudly be playing the national anthem and other wonderful music celebrating our country today at 3 p.m. The White House with the United States Marine Band and the United States Army Chorus, honoring America. NFL, no escaping to locker rooms." This summit is now set. It's on again, off again, and now definitely on again, according to the White House. Sarah Huckabee Sanders tweeting out some of the details last night. It will be on June 12th, as promised. It's going to be on Tuesday, June 11th at 9 a.m. local time in Singapore, but that's Monday, June 11th, our time. So June 12th, local time, June 11th here in the United States. It's going to be at the Capella Hotel on Singapore's Sentosa Island. So that's a luxury facility that's going to be hosting the two leaders, and we'll wait and see what comes of all this. this. The president last night in an event here in Washington suggesting that things are going well in terms of the planning for the summit.
North Korea looks like it's moving along very well. A lot of relationship being built, a lot of negotiation going on even before the trip. But it looks like it's coming along fine. We'll see what happens. But very important. It'll be a very important couple of days.
Tesla shares sharply higher today following positive comments on the Model 3 production schedule by Elon Musk and a vote of confidence from Musk by shareholders. Phil LeBeau joins us here at headquarters today with more on this story.
And we haven't seen shares of Tesla at this level. You got to go back to early May. I mean, this is the biggest run for a stock in one day since 2016. And it's all because of what we saw from Tesla last night in terms of not only the financials in the third quarter and the second half, but also the Model 3. And with regard to the Model 3, the company says they're currently building about 3,500 a week, and Elon Musk says it is likely they will be at 5,000 per week in the next month.
Well, shares of Athena Health are up this hour after news that the company's CEO and co-founder Jonathan Bush has resigned. In a story we first told you about last week, Mr. Bush admitted to an altercation with his former wife some years ago during a divorce. Our Bertha Coombs joins us now live from the NASDAQ with more on this still developing story. Bertha, what do we know?
Well, you know, this is one of the stories that has been playing out here over several months. Jonathan Bush has been under pressure from activist investors for some time to turn the company around. In February, he ceded the chairman job to Jeff Immelt, and now this morning he relinquished the CEO job and his position on the board. The writing clearly on the wall after revelations last month that Bush had abused his ex-wife during their divorce proceedings, for which he apologized publicly, subsequent allegations of sexual harassment. But ultimately, this was about activist investor Elliott Management pushing the cloud-based health records firm to restructure, manage better, and sell the company. Shares this morning touching a new 52-week high.
And there are more problems apparently for Facebook. Shares of the social media giant under pressure right now on news about its data sharing with Chinese companies. Julia Borson's at the NYSE with all the details. Julia.
Well, Melissa, Facebook has data partnerships with 4 Chinese electronics companies, including Huawei, which has been flagged by U.S. intelligence officials as a national security threat. The New York Times reporting that these deals, among 60 partnerships with phone makers, gave private user data to these companies for them to integrate into their mobile phone systems. Now, Facebook responding that it controlled the integration with these Chinese phone makers and approved the social experiences that companies built with Facebook data. Facebook saying, quote, given the interest from Congress, we wanted to make it clear that all the information from these integrations with Huawei was stored on the device, not on Huawei's servers. Now, Facebook saying it'll wind down its data sharing partnership with Huawei by the end of the week.
The largest companies in America are owned by literally 100 million people, including veterans, retirees, teachers. You know, we all feel a tremendous obligation to deliver in the long run, to build great companies, and that therefore corporate governance is important. And one important step, and I actually really learned this by listening to Warren, is some of the ills and problems of people making short-term forecasts, particularly quarterly earnings forecasts. Earnings forecasts, not transparency, not openness, not having quarterly reporting, and it can often put a company in a position where management, you know, from the CEO down, feels obligated to deliver earnings and therefore may do things that they wouldn't otherwise have done. So if you have a good board, you know, the board will say, if you have a great investment opportunity and you say it's going to cost me another couple $100 million this quarter, you know, someone like Warren would say, absolutely do it. That's good. That's future earnings. Don't hurt your company because you're trying to meet a short-term thing. So we've been pushing on it. And, you know, Warren's been you know, part of one of the person making a real thing. So we think it's just a good thing to give people an umbrella to move away from. And I'm hoping a bunch of companies drop it right away.
Warren, this is something you've been preaching about for a long time, too. What's an example of where you've seen it gone wrong?
Well, I've seen when companies get where they're sort of living by so-called making the numbers, they do a lot of things that really are counter to the long-term interests of the business. And I've never seen a company whose performance has been improved by having some forecast out there by the CEO that we're going to earn X, because it's not only sending the wrong message and delivering the wrong results to the company and to the country, it's also teaching the people that work under him or her that quarterly performance is the end game. I tell our managers, just pretend you're going to own, this is the only business you and your family are going to own for 50 years and you can't sell it.
Chinese telecommunications firm ZTE nearing a deal reportedly with the U.S. government to save its business. And join us now for a CNBC exclusive interview, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. Mr. Secretary, as always, it's great to see you. Where does this stand now? The Journal says we're close to a deal.
Well, we're more than close. At about 6 a.m. this morning, we executed definitive agreement with CTE, and that brings to a conclusion this phase of the development with them.
Really? Okay, so that you're telling us that right now. So at 6 a.m. this morning, this is no longer nearing a deal. This is a deal has been done, and the letters, T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, everything's finished.
Yep, all 23 pages of them.
Thank you very much. Today, I'm greatly honored to welcome my good friend, Prime Minister Abe of Japan, to the White House. Over the past 16 months, the Prime Minister and I have worked closely together to address common challenges, of which there are many, seize opportunities, and advance the interests of our nations. The steadfast alliance between Japan and the United States is an enduring force of peace and stability in the Pacific region and around the world. From the beginning of my administration, the Prime Minister and I have been working to expand our cooperation in a range of areas, including defense and commerce, which is what we discussed today, as I prepare to meet next week with Kim Jong-un. And I want to bring up the fact that the Prime Minister and also President Moon of South Korea were extremely helpful, cooperative, and they'd like to see something happen. Be great for North Korea, South Korea, be great for Japan, the United States, and the world. Our partnership has been invaluable in reaching this important moment, and we will continue to be in very close communication in the weeks ahead, including the issue of Japanese abductees, which I know is of great personal importance to Prime Minister Abe. I hope the upcoming meeting in Singapore represents the beginning of a bright new future for North Korea, and indeed a bright new future for the world. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula would usher in a new era of prosperity, security, and peace for all Koreans, North and South, and for people everywhere. Prime Minister Abe and I are also working to improve the trading relationship between the United States and Japan, something we have to do. The United States seeks a bilateral deal with Japan that is based on the principle of fairness and reciprocity.
Chef, author, and television host Anthony Bourdain found dead in his hotel room in France of an apparent suicide. He was 61 years old. Robert Frank joins us now with a look at the life of Anthony Bourdain. Robert.
Well, Melissa, he was called a celebrity chef, but like everything else in his life, Anthony Bourdain defied convention when it came to his brand and his business. Now, after a troubled youth with drug addiction and lots of financial troubles, he worked his way through various New York kitchens and eventually rose to become executive chef at Brasserie Les Halles. But his big break came when he was 44, and that book, Kitchen Confidential, was started as an article in The New Yorker, became a bestseller in 2000, selling over 1 million copies. He leveraged that into a dozen more books and cookbooks and 4 TV shows, with his most recent, Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, and CNN, that was in production for its 11th season when he died, and he won 5 Emmys for that show.
Just moments ago, we saw leaders from some of the wealthiest countries in the world posing for their traditional family photo, G7 tradition, in the beautiful Quebec City. Our Kayla Tausche has been reporting from the G7 summit, and there was a lot of intrigue, especially around this family photo, Kayla, because this always represents the sense of camaraderie between the world leaders. And going into this one, it was a very different story. There was a lot of anger and a lot of resentment at the United States for some of the recent tariffs.
Or as you point out rightly, Sarah, perhaps the absence of camaraderie this time around. You saw the leaders putting on a happy face and relatively happy demeanor as they lined up for that traditional family photo. President Trump, who was standing just pretty much in the center of the podium there with the leaders as they all waved on, looking on from beautiful Charlevoix, which is just about 90 minutes north of Quebec City. At the end, you see President Trump standing off to the side with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who earlier this week said there would be no papering over divisions with the U.S. at the G7 summit, and certainly many of those very difficult discussions are happening behind the scenes.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.